Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Really happy to be here today, sitting next to our next head coach of the franchise, Stephanie White. And this is a big day in the history of the franchise. She's been a part of a lot of big days of the franchise. I've sat on this stage many times with Stephanie, first when she was a player. My first player transaction that I ever did was to bring her to Indiana when we were an expansion team a long time ago. And the player that I traded for her was Sandy Brondello, who's the head coach of the championship team this year. So we have a long history in this league, and certainly, thrilled to have Stephanie back with us. And then, of course, she returned as an assistant coach with Lynn Dunn and on our staff, and went on to win a championship, and then hired her as a head coach. So there was a lot to talk about with her history with us, but I want to talk first just about why she's here and why she's a perfect choice for us. A couple of things, first of all, she's basketball royalty in the state of Indiana. Let's just start there. But, for me, it was really about bringing a proven leader, somebody who has great experience in tough moments, great experience in playoff moments, in high-pressure situations. I watched her as a player. I watched her as a coach. She knows how to take those moments and never get too high, never get too low. Just a high basketball intellect. The way that she communicates with her players is very impressive. I feel fortunate, really, that we're sitting here and that we have this chance to, at this pivotal time, to really go back to work and finish some unfinished business that we had from 2015 when we left that one hanging. But super happy to be here, and I want to say welcome to her family. Her mother and two sisters are here. Say welcome to our players. We have Leah Boston and Caitlin Clark and Lexi Hull here. Very happy to see you guys. And then I want to pass it over to Amber Cox. You guys haven't formally met her, our new COO, GM, and happy to have her on our leadership team. Look forward to getting to work with her, and I'm going to pass it over to Amber.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I just want to start by thanking our ownership, Herb Simon and the Simon family, and Mel Raines for their incredible commitment and investment in Indiana Fever basketball. To a person, I'm on, I think, day 6 is what we're calling this on the job. But to a person, everyone that I've met in this organization is so passionate about the Indiana Fever and the direction we are headed, and that certainly always starts at the very top. So I'm truly grateful to be a part of this organization. I also want to thank Kelly, who really led the charge to bring Stephanie back to the Fever. Kelly and I have known one another for, I don't want to date us, but something like 20 years. And she is hands down one of the very best executives in our business, men's or women's basketball. So we are so fortunate that she has come back to the Fever, back to the WNBA, and it is a dream come true for me to come to work alongside Kelly every day. I also want to shout out the Hall of Famer, Lynn Dunn. Lynn Dunn has her fingerprints all over this franchise. She has been a mentor to me, a mentor to Steph, to so many of us who have come up in this business. And I'm truly grateful that Lynn has agreed to stay on as a senior advisor as I step into this new role as the general manager of the Indiana Fever. And now the reason that we're all here, I'm so excited to welcome Stephanie White back home as the Indiana Fever head coach.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Kelly. It's going to be really hard for me to not get emotional here today, but I think for all of these people, all these familiar faces in the building here today, this is coming home for me. It has been such an experience with this franchise for nearly 25 years from day one, and the opportunity to come home and to lead this young, exciting, talented team, to work with Kelly again, who is, the best architect in the WNBA and has put together championship teams year in and year out, to finally work with Amber. I've seen her at many stops along the way as well, and then certainly to continue to work alongside my mentor in Lynn Dunn, who from the time I was about 14 years old, up until now and beyond, has been an incredible resource, sounding board, motivator for me in my quest to be the best that I can be on and off the floor. And certainly when you think about the Indiana Fever and the Indiana Pacers, and what I have always loved from day one of this franchise is that they are spoken equally. The Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever, and Herb Simon and the Simon family, and the opportunity that has been presented to a number of players and staff who have come through this franchise to be on an elite level every single year. And so I want to thank them. I want to thank Mel Raines, who first got here in 2015 when I was here for the first time as a head coach. I'm not sure where Mel is, right there as well, for welcoming me back and for the job that she has continued to do as well. I mean, you all know, you've been here. This is just a really, really special place. It's a special franchise. It's been a part of my DNA from day one, and will always continue to be a part of my DNA. And multiple times, Scott would ask me every time I came home, Pat would ask me every time I come back, what's it feel like, when you come back in this building? And every time I said, it feels like home. It feels like home, and that's because it is. And I am so incredibly honored, so humbled, so thankful, grateful, and excited to lead this franchise and taking it to another level. You've got incredibly talented players right here in Caitlin and Aaliyah and Lexi, a team that was incredibly fun to watch, very tough to game plan against. So I'm glad I'm going to get to work with you guys, work with you ladies, instead of having to think about how to stop you. The future is so bright, and our ultimate goal is to hang another banner in the field house. And our ultimate goal is to come back in here after we win that championship and celebrate again like we did in 2012. So I just want to thank everybody for coming. Really excited, really looking forward to this, and can't wait to get started.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll go to questions in the room. Raise your hand, and we'll get a mic around. Bob, you like to start?
For Stephanie, this is Bob Kravitz with bobkravitz.com, I guess. You're at a real inflection point in the history of the league. You were with the league when it started. How do you characterize the responsibility that you have, not only for this organization, but this league and being one of the top franchises, going back to being one of the top franchises in the league?
I think first and foremost, it's an exciting time. Those of us who have been around since day one have been waiting for this moment. We have envisioned this moment. We've spoken it into existence from day one, this moment. And so the responsibility, embracing the opportunity with where our game is, where women's basketball is, certainly we always want to recognize those whose shoulders that we stand on now, certainly, and those who are trailblazers, moving the needle and moving the game forward. And so for me, I'm just, I'm excited, I'm humbled, I'm passionate, I'm competitive, and I'm committed to continuing to move the needle for our league. I love this league. I love the game of basketball. I love the challenges that being at this pivotal moment create. And as a competitor, embrace these opportunities that we have. And certainly we all know it's not easy, but anybody who's ever done what we do knows that it's worth it.
Kelsey, go ahead.
Hey, Stephanie. Kelsey Casper, sideline reporter for the Fever. Could you just take us back to the moment that you learned that you're going to be the new head Fever coach? I know when people accept a job, a lot of transition comes, but you went and actually called an NBA game that night. I mean, have you been able to take a breath, and what has this been like for you this last week?
It's been really incredible. I think, one of the things about this position and this job is that there's just so much familiarity, right, with Kelly and with Lynn and with this franchise, with the Simon ownership group, with the Indiana Fever, that it feels like the stars perfectly aligned. And so, while at times there's anxiety through transition, there just really hasn't been for me. It's been very calming. It feels perfect. This franchise has been a part of my DNA from day one. and will always be. And so it's when things are meant to be, it feels really good. Certainly for me, being able to go call a game, I love basketball. Like, this is what I do. If I could be in a gym every day, all day, that's what I would do. So it was fitting almost that I was continuing to stay in the game and call a game that night. So I'm really excited about the opportunity. Certainly this is an amazing welcome. But getting down to the work, right? Rolling our sleeves up, getting back into the gym and thinking about the future is what we're all about and why we're here.
Go to Pat in the back.
Hello, Tess. Pat Boylan back here. Hi.
Hey, Pat.
Wondering how things have changed for you since you've come back here, just in a few days. You think about the facilities in this building and everything you were able to accomplish in 2015, 2016. But how do things feel different when you return?
Well, I think first and foremost, the game is different. When I think about, where we are in terms of more talented players than we've ever had, right? The game is completely different. Obviously, this is a franchise that for each moment we've been in the league's history, we've always had everything that we needed to succeed. And as the needle moves and as things change and as they've continued to change so rapidly, we've kept up with that. And I think that's a really important piece of where we are in the WNBA's history and forward thinking and where we're going to be in the near future. But for me, there's always been a piece when it comes to walking into this building and seeing all of these familiar faces. Many of us who are sitting on this side and on that side grew up in this organization, and there's always a special part of coming home. But Pat, you've seen it. You were here from those years too. Everything has changed. The expectations are higher. The game is different. Players are better. Teams are better. Teams are deeper. The league is expanding. So there's no rest for the weary. We gotta get to work, and we gotta be forward thinking.
Go Scott on the right.
Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files. Hey, Steph. As you reevaluate this roster, you've had a little bit of time to do that. What priorities do you have to be able to get back on that exact stage that you were back in 2012?
I think first and foremost, I think everybody knows and understands that there's never a substitute for experience. Like, this is a young roster who gained valuable experience throughout the course of this season, and having playoff experience is so important. You just never know what you don't know. And so the experience that these players gain throughout the course of this season, the experience that they'll continue to gain, throughout the course of this league is so important, and there's no substitute for that. Amber and I and Kelly are just talking about, players and evaluations before we came out here, and building quality depth is going to be important. When you have a core three like we have, surrounding them with players who are going to, fill the roles, certainly, first and foremost, who are going to embrace the roles, secondly, and who give us the best opportunities for success by complementing what they do really, really well. We have seen in this league's history, how difficult it is to win a championship. The margin for error is small. The margin for error is small. And when you're building teams, it's not about always just getting the best players. It's about getting the best complement of players who fit well together, who play well with one another, who work to bring the best out in one another. I believe truly in my heart that connected teams are winning teams. And so players who fit the culture of the Indiana Fever and where we are and where we're moving towards.
Next to first row on the right.
Yeah, Chloe Peterson, Indianapolis Star. This one's for Kelly. I was just wondering, what was your process in first deciding to make the coaching change, and then what excited you about bringing Steph back on?
Yeah, so, when I came in, beginning of October, really, had an opportunity to evaluate and fully look at everything. And so my challenge was, where do we need to make improvements? Where can we get better? And how do we, expedite this process? Because, from what I saw in the 2 years of, watching from where I sat, Chrissy Sides did a great job. And as we move forward, my thought process was how do we maximize what we have, and how do we jump on this opportunity now? So, the direction, the timeline was accelerated, to be honest. There was an opportunity to try to take experience, look at how can we maximize this group of young players, the resources that we have to be successful, and move that forward. So, we had made a decision that we were going to move on, And that was tough because it doesn't take away from anything that Christy did and what that coaching staff did. And to use her words, she left it better than she found it. And, but, you know, we're looking forward. And this is about the next phase and the next era of kind of what we're building here. So, you know, once I got word that Stephanie White could potentially be available, you know, we had some other candidates that we were looking at. And then when I had the opportunity to talk with her, it was like fortuitous, you know, or something that just, I couldn't even believe the timing of the opportunity to talk with her. And I know Stephanie, you know, I know how she is as a coach, and I saw what she did when she was here the 2 years that she coached, and just the chance to have her come back and take over. There's a lot of similarities in the way I see her play the game, the way she coaches the game, the way she communicates, and what we have. We have very highly intellectual players. Aaliyah Boston is one of the sharpest, high IQ players I've ever seen. Caitlin is as well. Lexi, you know, we've just got a really, really high IQ group of players, and I look forward to how Stephanie can communicate with them and work with them and put them in a position to be successful.
Stay in the front row, Chris.
Chris Whitlick, CBS 4. Stephanie, welcome home.
Thank you.
We know this professional opportunity is great with the players that you have. It's a franchise on the rise. How important was the personal side for you in making this decision, being closer to home, closer to family, and getting that side of your life in order again?
Yeah, it was really important. You know, I think I'm at the point in my career where, you know, making a decision for one reason or another isn't really good enough anymore. It's got to be about professional opportunity. It's got to be about the personal opportunities. And for me, you know, being near my family, and some of them are here today, including my nephew, who I've only seen a few times, so it would be great to see his little cute face more often. You know, and for my children to be able to be around my family even more, it's important. And you know, for those of us who have children, you know, you don't get these years back, right? You don't get this time back. And my family sacrificed a lot of time with my children, and for them to now be able to have them around more often, for me to be closer to home, it was really important. And you know, it's there's always a time in your life where you feel like everything needs to be grounded, everything needs to be centered, so that you can be where your feet are, no question about it. I think that's why we all do what we do and sacrifice in some way, shape, or form to be the best that we can be. But when it can all align and when it can all come together, there's no greater feeling. So that was certainly an important part of it.
Go Tony in the second row.
Tony Eastwood, the next. Stephanie, for you, you mentioned coaching against this team and the challenges of game plan. Now that you are in charge, what do you envision doing differently or more effectively with this group than in the past?
Well, I think, you know, first and foremost, obviously, they're an exciting team to watch. You know, I think offensively, we can be more creative. I think we can utilize, you know, in more versatility, utilize the certain players in different ways. You know, I'm a forward-thinking, outside-the-box kind of coach. You know, I like to challenge them on a number of levels. They are a high IQ team, so also giving them the freedom to make plays. Like, you want to make plays, you don't run plays. I mean, everybody knows at the end of the day, players win the ball games, right? You got to give them the freedom, the confidence to believe in their abilities to make those plays, but also a little bit of the structure to help them see the different ways that you can attack. You know, I think we've got to get better on the defensive end of the floor. You know, certainly, you know, we don't have to make leaps and bounds and go from wherever we are to the top, right? But we've got to continue to get better. We've got to make sure on the days that shots aren't falling that we're able to position ourselves to win ball games. And, you know, I was never a player who played defense. Dunn can attest to that. But it is a big part of how I coach. And so, yeah, see, I see you agreeing right there. You like that. But it is a big part of how I coach, and it's an important piece of us positioning ourselves to win ball games. And so, you know, we'll attack that as well, and we'll continue to get better on that end of the floor. But more than anything, we want to continue to be exactly what they are: a fun, fast-paced, up-tempo style of play. They're sharing the basketball, making teammates better, building quality depth. You know, I always said this as a coach the last 2 years, but with this team as well, like, you know, it's a long season. And next season, 44 games. We want to get a quality rotation. We want to put the best players who play well together on the floor in a consistent rotation. And we got to play the long game. You know, certainly you want to win every game, and you want to compete every game, but playing the long game, positioning yourselves for the playoffs, positioning yourselves to win playoff series is important.
Go in the back to Pat again.
Kelly, as the architect of the championship era of the Fever previously, how would you compare where this group is right now as you're building to get back to that level?
That's a good question. You know, obviously, I had 16 years with Tamika Catchings as our focal point, so that was a good place to start. And we were a defensive-oriented team, and but I would
Which
say
is why I didn't play.
I know exactly. Steph saw some time on the court, but it's, you know, there's similarities in that, you know, you typically have like a core group that you want to build around, and then I would always add veterans, you know, players that you know, veterans kind of figure out, you know, they've been in it a little bit, so, you know, talent obviously wins as well, but there's a lot of similarities in you know, a point guard like Caitlin that can help make other players better. I mean, it's kind of similar to the way we started building around Tyrese Halliburton. You know, there's ways that you can build around a player that knows how to pass the ball and get other people involved. But look, it's like Steph said, you know, the margin of error is slim, you know, and on any given night, anything can happen. But I think that we are at a point where we have an attractive group, we have a great organization, we can attract a few free agents to come here and bolster and keep us on the path that we're on.
And then, Amber, as somebody that's held key positions at different franchises over the last couple of decades, I mean, what about this opportunity excited you, was able to pull you away from those opportunities?
Kelly Krauskopf called. That was a big one, to be able to work alongside someone like Kelly. Obviously, this roster and what's happening here in Indiana, these incredible players, it was really a no-brainer. It is a role that is very similar to positions that I've held in Connecticut and Phoenix, so I'm very excited to have a foot in both the business and a foot in the basketball. Again, that feels like a very comfortable space for me to be able to marry the two together. So it's really just, as Steph said, perfect all the way around, personally and professionally.
Local ESPN.com. Steph, both as a broadcaster and as opposing coach, you've studied Aaliyah and Caitlin a lot. I wonder what has really stood out to you. They're the past two rookies of the year. What stood out to you about how they've played individually and also how they played as a pick-and-roll duo?
I think first and foremost, you know, they're both incredibly competitive players, and you know, there's a fire and a mentality that you can't teach when it comes to competitive spirit, and when it comes to being a great teammate, and when it comes to lifting those up around you, and you know, watching both of them grow into not just the players that they are, but grow into the spotlight that they have, how they lead. You know, how they make their teammates better, how they lift one another up, how they've handled, you know, all of the things that have come their way. You know, and all of those things that come your way are certainly earned when you're put in this position, right? It's like, you know, people say it all the time, like, oh man, you would hate to be. No, you don't. Like, as an athlete, this is what you want, right? You want to be the one that is the hunted. You want to be the one that has the opportunity to impact. And not just impacting, you know, little girls and boys, but impacting the game, impacting your team, impacting our culture. And these two have led the way with that. And then you put it together and you've got the point guard and the center. Are you kidding me? Like, you've got the bookends that you want to build around. And these two are the best. And I think that there's so many things that they do well right now. And you saw the difference from the beginning of the season to the end of the season and how much better they got with one another, how much they could anticipate what one another was going to do, how they facilitated with one another. But there's so much room for growth. You know, and when you think about a Stockton and Malone, right? You think, I know you guys are too young for that reference, but when you think about the great point guards and post players that our game, not just our league, but our game has seen, they are going to go down in history as the greatest. And I'm excited about the opportunity to work with them. I'm excited about the opportunity that we have to build from those starting points and build out, and for the longevity that those two could have in Indiana, in Indianapolis, and hanging banners in this building. All of those things are so exciting. The future's really bright, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
AC.
Anthony Calhoun, Wish TV. Stephanie, congratulations. Happy for you. When you see these sellouts and these fans, and for you personally, how much are you looking forward to being able to coach in the atmosphere like they've had here this past year?
I'm excited. You know, AC, it's these guys are used to it. In college, they're selling out arenas. You know, back in the old days, we used to sell out arenas too. And for the first time, it's becoming the norm, right? It's not just becoming a college thing that hasn't transferred to the WNBA. It's becoming the norm, and I'm excited. You know, that's the added era and realm of having fans in the building, whether they're cheering for you or not, is huge. Competitors love it. You know, embracing opportunities to play in front of a lot of fans, embracing opportunities to impact those 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people that are in the arena just by doing what you love to do every single day, just by signing autographs before or after the game, right? Just by getting on the floor after a loose ball. You know, I have boys, and I love having my boys who are wearing the WNBA jerseys, now who are shooting shots and acting like they're Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston and you know, and Tamika Catchings, that was their first jersey, right? And so this is such an incredible moment on a global scale for our game, for our players, for us who have been around for a long time, and I'm embracing this. I will always embrace it. I don't think any of us will ever take it for granted because this is what we envision. And now we get an opportunity to live it. You know, Dunn was from the time when you were driving the station wagon, right? The wooden station wagon and doing the laundry, you know, to now. I mean, you know, talk about trailblazers, you know, and for me and for Kelly and for Amber to have been able to sit at those tables and have those conversations with Dunn and Mickey DeMoss and Gail Gestenkors and Pat Summitt and just hear where it started. And now be able to live where it is. And for them to be able to carry it to where it's going, it's just such an incredible opportunity and such an incredible moment.
Scott got another one.
Kelly, we talk about Steph now being in a comfort zone. How about the same for you? This is one less thing for you to worry about. You know exactly how she operates, what she is like. And then also, what does maybe the next 2-3 months look like for you in reshaping maybe what this roster looks like?
So, yeah, I mean, we're competitive, so it's great to be here, but I can't wait to get to work because I'm already thinking about what we need to be on the phone with teams right now because, you know, our next opportunity is the expansion draft and how that looks and what's around that we can potentially get involved in that somehow and get a player. You know, that's what I love doing. That's what I did all those years was, you know, finding ways to add another player to our roster that's going to impact us and help us get better. So those are the things, you know, the roster, obviously, you know, finalizing Steph's staff and rounding that out, but primarily, you know, from a player perspective, you know, it's roster building time. So we'll be looking at that starting in December with expansion draft and then, of course, free agency following in January.
Anybody else? Anything in the room? All right. Kelly, Stephanie, Amber, congratulations. Coach White, welcome back to Indiana.